The hidden wisdom of your soul, a journey through karma, time, and the last digit of your birth year. What if you've been here before? Have you ever walked into a place for the very first time and yet felt like you've already been there? Have you ever met someone and felt an instant connection, as if your souls knew each other long before your minds ever met? Or perhaps, without any logical reason, you've been drawn to a specific culture, profession, or way of thinking, something that resonates so deeply it feels like remembering, not discovering. These moments, subtle, strange, and often brushed aside, may not be coincidences. According to Buddhist teachings, they may be glimpses, echoes, traces of a life once lived. Because in the Buddhist worldview, you are not just a product of your childhood, your culture, or your DNA. You are the continuation of stories that began long before you took your first breath. And here's where it gets even more intriguing. What if the last digit of your birth year, yes, that simple number, holds a key to understanding the karmic energy you've brought into this life? It sounds unbelievable. A little too mystical. Maybe even absurd at first glance. But ancient Buddhist numerology suggests otherwise. In this system, numbers are more than symbols. They are vibrations, carriers of karma, mirrors of your soul's tendencies, and maps pointing toward the spiritual lessons your current incarnation is here to learn. This isn't about superstition or fortune telling. It's not about blaming fate or glorifying past lives. Instead, it's an invitation to reflect, to remember, and most importantly, to awaken. Because if your soul has indeed traveled through lifetimes, gathering wisdom, enduring wounds, seeking meaning, then wouldn't it be worth understanding what it's been carrying all along? In this journey, we will explore the karmic archetypes hidden in each final digit from 0 to 9. We'll look not just at what these numbers might mean, but how they might manifest in the real world, through stories, relationships, career paths, emotional patterns, and spiritual growth. We'll draw from ancient Buddhist wisdom. But we won't stop there. We'll go deeper into personal insight, practical application, and transformational awareness. Because your soul's journey is not a relic of the past, it is a living story. And the next chapter is being written right now. So, take a breath. Slow down. Open your mind. This is not just a guide to karma. This is a mirror for the self. And what you see may surprise you. Understanding the karmic code, more than just a number. In a world driven by logic, timelines, and tangible proof, the idea that a single digit, the last number in your birth year, might contain echoes of your past life can feel far-fetched. But not everything that shapes us can be measured in scientific terms. Our fears, longings, habits, and even our talents often emerge from somewhere deeper than conscious memory. Sometimes we describe them as intuition, gut feelings, or emotional imprints. But the ancient Buddhist view offers another lens. These inner currents may be karmic residues, carried forward from life to life, like waves rippling across oceans of time. In Buddhism, karma is not a system of reward or punishment. It's not cosmic justice doled out by a divine judge. Instead, karma is cause and effect, pure, impersonal, and profoundly consistent. Every action, thought, and intention sets something into motion. And while some effects unfold instantly, others take years or lifetimes. That's where rebirth comes in. Imagine a flame passed from one candle to the next. The form is new, but the fire is carried forward. According to Buddhist thought, we are like that, not reincarnated as fixed identities, but reformed as energy, tendencies, and consciousness shaped by previous causes. So where does the number come in? In certain Buddhist numerological traditions, especially those that blend with Eastern esoteric systems, numbers are believed to hold vibrational meanings. They reflect not only patterns of the universe, but patterns within the soul, echoing the archetypes you're most likely to embody, the karma you're most likely to repeat, and the gifts you're here to refine. And while this isn't mainstream Buddhist doctrine, it serves a purpose: to offer a symbolic map. A mirror. A poetic way of understanding why some people are natural healers, while others are seekers, rebels, or mystics from birth. Let's be clear, this is not fortune telling. It is not deterministic. And it's certainly not meant to box you into a number. Instead, it's a practice of awareness, a reflective tool to ask yourself, what patterns keep showing up in my life? What am I unconsciously drawn to, and why? What am I here to complete, to heal, or to awaken within myself? When approached with mindfulness and honesty, these karmic archetypes can become catalysts. Not for believing in past lives blindly, but for understanding the very real struggles, strengths, and desires that shape you in this one. So here's how we'll explore this. For each last digit number, from 0 to 9, we'll uncover the karmic energy it represents, the possible roles or archetypes you may have embodied in past lives, the patterns you might recognize in your current personality, Buddhist teachings that help you transform those patterns into growth, real-life examples that bring these ideas to life. Because knowledge alone is never enough. Wisdom comes through reflection, and transformation comes through practice. Now, are you ready to look into the mirror? Let's begin with the number 0, the mark of a completed cycle and a brand new beginning. 0, the blank slate, a soul at the edge of new beginnings. If your birth year ends in 0, for example, 1980, 1990, 2000, or 2010, Buddhist numerology suggests something remarkable. Your soul has completed a major karmic cycle. But what does that mean, really? The ending before the beginning. In many spiritual traditions, 0 is not nothingness, it is potential. A pregnant silence before a great symphony. The still point at the center of the wheel. In the karmic context, it symbolizes a soul that, in its previous incarnation, brought a major story to its end. Perhaps you resolved deep conflicts, fulfilled a life purpose, or reached a state of internal peace that allowed you to graduate from one karmic pattern. But here's the paradox. When a soul completes a cycle, the next life doesn't feel like a celebration. It often feels lost, untethered, blank. Many people born with 0 as their final birth year digit report a strange sense of starting over, with no map. They may explore many different careers, question their purpose, or feel like they've lived multiple lives within a single one. A story from the path, Hannah's new beginning. Let me tell you about Hannah, a 33-year-old woman born in 1990, raised in a quiet Japanese village. From a young age, she felt like she didn't belong anywhere, not because she was rejected, but because nothing called to her. While her peers followed predictable paths, school, marriage, jobs, Hannah drifted. She tried teaching, then gardening, then photography. She moved from Tokyo to London to a small island in Greece. Everywhere she went, people told her, "You're so calm, so wise, but what do you want?" She didn't know. Until one day, in a monastery in Chiang Mai, a monk gently told her, "Perhaps it's not about knowing. Perhaps your soul is meant to rediscover life from the beginning, not from memory, but from presence." That moment changed everything. The Buddhist perspective, embracing beginner's mind. In Zen Buddhism, there's a concept called Shoshin, the beginner's mind. It's the practice of approaching every moment, task, or relationship as if it were brand new, with openness, curiosity, and no preconceptions. For souls born under 0, this isn't just a mindset, it's a karmic calling. You are not meant to live by recycled scripts. Your past life was the final chapter of a long novel. This life is page 1 of a brand new book. But that can be scary. A blank canvas is both freedom and fear. Many 0 souls carry anxiety around not having a clear identity or purpose. But Buddhist wisdom teaches us that clinging to identity is the root of suffering. The Buddha said, "All compounded things are impermanent. Strive on with diligence." In other words, don't cling to what you were. Be diligent in exploring who you are becoming. Key lesson, don't let the past define your future. One of the hidden traps for 0 souls is spiritual nostalgia, a subconscious desire to remember their past life greatness, instead of building something new in the present. Some may feel they were once healers, monks, warriors, and search endlessly for a return to that power or purpose. But Buddhism warns against attachment, even to spiritual identity. You are not here to repeat. You are here to create, fresh, curious, open. A practice for the zero soul, meditate on impermanence, anicca. A helpful daily practice is to sit in quiet contemplation and observe the breath as it rises and falls, noticing how every inhale begins fresh, every exhale ends. This is impermanence, anicca, the truth that everything is always becoming something else. Inhale, possibility. Exhale, letting go. With each breath, remind yourself, you are not behind. You are not lost. You are being reborn in every moment. 1. The karmic leader, strength, responsibility, and the inner battle for wisdom. If your birth year ends in 1, like 1981, 1991, 2001, or 2011, you may carry the energetic imprint of a past life leader. But leadership, in the karmic sense, is not merely about titles or authority. It's about impact. It's about responsibility. It's about the weight of choices and the karma those choices leave behind. In your previous life, you might have been a king, a warrior, a philosopher, or even a revolutionary. People depended on you. Your words and actions shaped the paths of others. Perhaps you inspired, perhaps you challenged, or perhaps you misused that power. Whatever the case, your soul remembers how heavy it is to lead. Leadership karma, the blessing and the burden. In this life, you might feel a strange internal pull toward taking charge, even when you don't want to. You may instinctively step forward when others hesitate. At work, in friendships, even in family dynamics, people may look to you for direction. But there's often an inner conflict. You might doubt yourself, fear failure, or constantly feel like you're not doing enough. Some karmic leaders struggle with control issues, trying to fix or direct everything. Others swing the opposite way, hiding their strength out of fear they'll misuse it again. This tension is not random. It's your karmic echo, inviting you to learn a deeper form of leadership. A story from the path, Marco's dilemma. Let's meet Marco, born in 1991, now a project manager in a tech startup in Barcelona. Everyone sees him as confident, decisive, and in control. But inside, Marco wrestles with enormous anxiety. He's terrified of disappointing his team. He triple-checks every decision, apologizes too often, and sometimes avoids making the tough calls entirely. In meditation, Marco once had a vision. He stood on a battlefield, dressed in armor, giving orders, watching as others followed him into danger. He didn't know if it was imagination or memory, but the emotional weight lingered for days. A Buddhist teacher later told him, "Your fear of harming others comes from a time when your decisions had great consequence. But now, you must lead with awareness, not fear. Be present. That is the only place true leadership arises." Marco wept. The Buddhist view, leadership is self-mastery. In Buddhism, the greatest leader is not the one who commands others, it is the one who masters himself. The Buddha was once a prince, destined to rule a kingdom. But he chose a different path, not to dominate, but to awaken. He taught, "A wise person first directs himself in the way he should go. Only then does he instruct others." This is the heart of karmic leadership. It is not about control. It is about clarity, compassion, and consistency of mind. Your past life may have given you strength, strategy, and the drive to lead. But this life is not about domination. It's about leading from within. The inner battle, ego versus wisdom. The shadow side of karmic leadership is ego. You may crave validation. You might become frustrated when others don't listen. Or worse, you might burn out trying to carry everyone's burdens. The lesson? True power isn't control. It's presence without force. A practice for the leader's soul, anapanasati, mindful breathing. This ancient breathing meditation teaches leaders to return to the present moment, especially in moments of pressure. It helps prevent impulsive decisions and builds emotional regulation. Try this. 1. Sit quietly. 2. Focus on the breath, in and out. 3. Notice the pause between breaths. That stillness is your power. In that stillness, decisions are clearer. In that stillness, the leader becomes the servant of truth, not of fear or pride. Letting go of control, the wisdom of non-attachment. Another key teaching for karmic leaders is upadana, the Buddhist concept of clinging. When we cling to outcomes, roles, or power, we suffer. Letting go doesn't mean being passive. It means acting from wisdom, not need. As a karmic leader, you're not here to fix the world. You're here to lead with presence, inspire without ego, and uplift others through grounded clarity. When you do, leadership becomes not a burden, but a form of love. 2. The peacemaker, empathy, boundaries, and the wisdom of inner stillness. If your birth year ends in 2, like 1982, 1992, 2002, or 2012, your soul likely carries the karmic imprint of a peacemaker. In your previous life, you may have been a healer, a monk, a diplomat, or a devoted caregiver. Your existence revolved around restoring balance, offering comfort, and reducing suffering, often putting the needs of others above your own. But karma is never one-sided. And in your case, your past compassion may have come at a personal cost. Karmic patterns, giving beyond limits. In this life, you may instinctively avoid conflict. You might feel deeply affected by the emotions of others, often absorbing their pain as if it were your own. You likely find yourself in the role of the emotional anchor, the friend who listens, the coworker who mediates, the family member who keeps peace during chaos. But behind your gentle strength lies a silent struggle, overwhelm, emotional fatigue, or even resentment that builds when you forget to include yourself in your circle of care. This is the karmic echo from your past life, where perhaps you gave everything and lost yourself. A story from the path, Lena the listener. Let's meet Lena, born in 1992, a social worker in Vancouver. She's the one everyone comes to when they're hurting. Strangers open up to her within minutes. Her presence is soothing, like warm tea on a winter morning. But behind closed doors, Lena is exhausted. She has no energy left at the end of the day. She finds it hard to say no, even when she's at her limit. She cries alone sometimes, not because she's weak, but because she's holding too much that isn't hers. It wasn't until a meditation retreat that Lena encountered the Buddhist teaching of upekkha, equanimity. Her teacher told her, "True compassion does not mean drowning with others. It means offering your hand from solid ground." That sentence became her turning point. The Buddhist perspective, peace from the inside out. The Buddha was no stranger to suffering. He saw it everywhere, in illness, aging, death, and grief. Yet he taught not avoidance, but equanimity, the capacity to remain calm, present, and compassionate without becoming consumed. Upekkha is one of the 4 sublime states, Brahmaviharas, alongside loving-kindness, compassion, and sympathetic joy. It teaches us to hold others in love, without attachment to outcomes. For karmic peacemakers, this is the missing piece. You're not here to fix everyone. You're here to offer presence, not solutions. The inner trap, over-identifying with the role of the helper. One common shadow of the peacemaker is over-identification. You may believe that your worth comes from being needed, or that harmony is your responsibility alone. This can lead to saying yes when you mean no, sacrificing your own well-being, feeling guilty for resting or focusing on yourself. But Buddhist wisdom reminds us, you, yourself, as much as anybody in the entire universe, deserve your love and affection. The Buddha. In fact, without self-compassion, your outer compassion loses strength. It becomes strained, performative, or unsustainable. A practice for the peacemaker's soul, metta with a twist. Most peacemakers are drawn to metta bhavana, the practice of loving-kindness meditation. But here's a twist. Start by directing all the loving-kindness toward yourself first. Say silently, "May I be safe. May I be happy. May I be healthy. May I live with ease." Only when your cup is full, begin to extend that love outward, to friends, strangers, even those you find difficult. This trains your heart to give without depletion. Another essential practice is letting go, Vairagya, the understanding that you can care without carrying. The middle path, boundaries are not walls. As a karmic peacemaker, your gift is connection. But connection requires energy, and energy requires boundaries. Saying no is not rejection. It's self-respect. Imagine your heart as a sacred temple. You are the guardian of what enters and what stays. Let love flow freely, but also know when to close the gate for restoration. When you master this, peace stops being a mask and becomes your essence. 3. The creator, inspiration, doubt, and the dharma of expression. If your birth year ends in 3, like 1983, 1993, 2003, or 2013, you may be carrying the karmic essence of a creator. In your previous life, your soul likely engaged in the act of creation, not just art, but expression in all its forms: poetry, design, architecture, invention, storytelling, music, or innovation. But creation is rarely easy. Many creators of the past lived with brilliance and burden. And if that energy lingers in your soul today, you may know exactly what that feels like. The blessing of vision and the curse of perfectionism. As a 3 soul, you may find yourself flooded with ideas, inspirations, and dreams. You might start countless projects, write down endless plans, or feel an intense need to express something deeper than words. But alongside that spark often comes its shadow, self-doubt, imposter syndrome, or fear of judgment. You may ask, is this good enough? Will anyone care? What if I fail? This is Mara, the force of illusion and fear, the same energy that tempted the Buddha under the Bodhi tree, whispering, "You are not worthy. Who do you think you are?" The Buddha responded not with force, but with presence. He touched the earth and declared, "I am here." As a karmic creator, this is your spiritual task, to stand firm in your creative truth, even when the voice of fear gets loud. A story from the path, Diego the unfinished artist. Take Diego, born in 1993, a Mexican-American painter living in New York. From childhood, he had visions, entire paintings forming in his mind before he even picked up a brush. But for years, his canvases remained blank. Every time he started a new work, he'd freeze midway. It's not perfect, he'd think. It's been done before. His studio became a graveyard of unfinished art. One night, after a failed gallery interview, Diego dreamed of an old man building a temple in the desert. The man kept adding stones, alone, silently. When Diego asked, "Will anyone ever see it?" the man smiled and said, "I build because it's in my nature, whether the world watches or not." When Diego woke, he cried. And the next morning, he painted without stopping. The Buddhist perspective, creativity is dharma. In Buddhism, dharma means both the cosmic law and your unique path. For creators, their art is dharma, a living expression of inner truth, beyond ego or recognition. The act of creating becomes meditation in motion. Whether it's writing, dancing, filming, coding, or building, when done with mindfulness, creativity becomes a path to awakening. The Buddha taught, "Better than 1,000 hollow words is one word that brings peace." Likewise, your creations don't need to be grand. They just need to be honest. The inner trap, chasing masterpieces, avoiding completion. Many karmic creators have a recurring issue, starting, but not finishing. The fear of imperfection becomes paralyzing. Some may constantly refine, while others sabotage their work before it's seen. But perfection is not the goal. In Buddhism, anatta teaches that there is no fixed self. That means your art, too, is not you, it's a moment of your presence captured in form. Let it go. Let it breathe. A practice for the creator's soul, walking meditation, kinhin. When you feel blocked or overwhelmed, practice walking meditation. Take slow, deliberate steps. Feel your feet touching the earth. Let your thoughts rise and fall without judgment. Often, movement frees inspiration that stillness can't reach. Another powerful practice is non-attachment, anicca. Remind yourself that your value is not defined by how others receive your work. Creation is enough. Dare to be seen. As a karmic creator, your soul came here to bring something new into the world. Not to impress. Not to win. But to reveal what is true. Your voice matters. Your ideas matter. And the world needs what only you can create. Let your creations be imperfect. Let them be raw. Let them be real. Because sometimes the most powerful medicine is expression itself. 4. The seeker, restlessness, wisdom, and the art of being. If your birth year ends in 4, like 1984, 1994, 2004, or 2014, your soul may carry the karmic imprint of a seeker. In a past life, you may have been a philosopher, a monk, a mystic, a scientist, or a wanderer of the inner and outer world. You weren't content with easy answers. You needed to know, to explore the hidden layers beneath the surface of life. But when a soul spends a lifetime searching, it may carry forward not just wisdom, but longing. The spiritual restlessness of the seeker. In this life, you may feel like you're always looking for something. A greater truth. A deeper love. A purpose that feels absolutely right. Even when things seem fine on the outside, a quiet unease may follow you. A voice inside whispers, "This isn't it yet." You might read endlessly, travel often, question traditions, or experiment with various spiritual paths. And while this hunger for truth is beautiful, it can also become a trap. Because the seeker often forgets to stop seeking. A story from the path, Min and the Mirage. Min, born in 1994, grew up in Vietnam with a fascination for ancient texts. By the age of 22, he had read the Tao Te Ching, the Bhagavad Gita, the Pali Canon, and half the Western philosophers. He knew the words, but peace still eluded him. He traveled to India, then Nepal, then Japan, meditating, fasting, studying. But something always felt missing. One evening, sitting under a cherry tree in Kyoto, a Zen master told him, "You are chasing the moon reflected in water. But the moon has always been in the sky." That one sentence shattered Min's illusion. The truth wasn't out there. It was within. It had always been. The Buddhist view, the middle way over endless seeking. The Buddha himself was once a seeker, trying extreme indulgence and then extreme asceticism. He pushed his body to the limits, believing suffering was the key to wisdom. But enlightenment didn't come from the extremes. It came when he chose the middle path, a life of balance, mindfulness, and presence. He realized, the answer is not at the end of the path. The answer is in the step itself. As a karmic seeker, your soul still longs for something bigger. But now, your lesson is to realize that truth isn't always found through effort. Sometimes, it's revealed through stillness. The inner trap, mistaking movement for progress. Many seekers equate searching with growing. But sometimes, we run from one idea to another not out of devotion, but avoidance. Avoidance of stillness. Of the void. Of the ordinary. But in Buddhism, there's a profound teaching called sati, mindfulness. It means being so deeply present that every moment becomes a doorway to insight. For you, the seeker, the journey is no longer outward. It's inward. A practice for the seeker's soul, zazen, seated meditation. The most powerful thing you can do? Sit. Just sit. No goals. No mantras. Just be. Zazen teaches the seeker to make peace with stillness. To sit with the uncomfortable silence. To stop chasing and start listening. It's in this deep silence that answers come, not as fireworks, but as quiet knowing. Another key teaching is sunyata, emptiness. Not nihilism, but the realization that all things are empty of fixed essence. Including your search. Including your identity. And yet, in that emptiness, is peace. You are already home. You may have once searched for lifetimes. You may still feel the urge to figure it all out. But your greatest transformation comes not from the next book, temple, or teaching. It comes from being here, fully, without reaching. Let go of the need to grasp. Trust that you already carry what you seek. The moon is not in the water. It's been shining above you the whole time.